Good evening. Today I'm going to be discussing my modified Pagani design PD-1661 Explorer. I'm also going to be discussing this watch, which is my Pagani design PD-1661 Explorer Kermit. These are both one-off pieces. They are unique, they are world first. Nobody else has done this before. So firstly, I'll talk you through my PD-1661 Explorer, and then I'll talk you through the Explorer Kermit version. So I have emailed Pagani Design this video, and I have asked them to consider making this watch because I think it would be a very hot seller. So I'll explain how I made it. As you'll know from my previous review, this started off as a Bliger PA21 Explorer, which is Seiko NH35A powered. I fitted a Pagani Design PD-1661 flip lock clasp to the oyster style bracelet, which comes on the PA21 Bliger, and it's perfect fit. And then I fitted the dial, handset and movement from a Pagani Design PD-1661 inside the Bliger PA21 Explorer case. And what you have here is the end product, the completed watch. And I'm absolutely delighted with it. I love the Submariner date dial layout of the PD-1661 inside the Bliger Explorer case. The black sunburst dial contrasts beautifully with the applied indices, and I think it's just absolutely beautiful to look at. Now, the only change I have suggested that Pagani Design make, if they do make the watch, is to change the finish of the tops of the lugs to a brushed satin finish. I think it would be more aesthetically pleasing if it had a brushed satin finish like on this one on the tops of the lugs, and contrast that with the mirror polished flanks to the flanks of the case. So that would make it more like the Rolex 214270 Explorer, and it would give it a more tool watch aesthetic. With the mirror polished bezel, mirror polished tops of the case and mirror polished flanks, it gives it more of a dress watch aesthetic rather than being a tool watch aesthetic of the Rolex Explorer, for example. So I'm hoping that if they do produce it, they brush satin finish the tops of the lugs, but they retain the mirror polished flanks and also the mirror polished bezel as per the 214270 Rolex Explorer. Brush satin finish on the top side and underside of the oyster bracelet with mirror polished flanks will also complement that. The other thing I've suggested they do, and not just for this Explorer homage, but also on the PD-1661 and PD-1662 respectively, is to introduce a glide lock clasp rather than using the flip lock, as I've discussed in my previous review. I'm hoping they do that across the range because it would be a very good enhancement to all Pagani Design watches to have a glide lock. So there's one thing I want to give you a tip on. I didn't have the correct Rolex or Tudor style caseback tool. I have ordered a tool set and I'm waiting for them to be delivered, but I grew impatient and I wanted to complete this modification, so I devised another method of removing the solid stainless steel caseback. As you can see, it's Rolex or Tudor style. It has a coin edge teeth profile to it, which the tool engages with. So how did I remove it and refit it without damaging it in the absence of the correct tool? Well, I used Unibond duct tape. Now, with regards to duct tape, it really is a case of one gets what one pays for. Unibond is very expensive duct tape, but the adhesive is incredibly strong. It's much stronger than less expensive options. Now, what I did was I rolled up the duct tape into a ball like this with the sticky side out. And then what I did was I used the ball of duct tape, I stuck it onto the stainless steel caseback, and then I unscrewed it. Because it's very sticky, I was able to get good purchase with my thumb and my fingers, and I was able to unscrew the ball of duct tape stuck to the caseback without any damage. So I unscrewed it, and then I removed the movements, the dials and hands, and then I refitted them, and then I was able to use the ball of duct tape to screw back down the caseback, and it worked very well. I was able to get a good tight fit, and as you can see, there is no damage whatsoever to the caseback, no scuffs or scratches, which I would have damaged it if I used the incorrect tool to try and unscrew it. So that's a tip for you. If you have a Rolex or Tudor style caseback and you can't get it off, you don't have the correct tool, you can simply use a ball of Unibond duct tape and it does work. Now, when the tool set does arrive, I will give it a final tighten just to see if I can gain another eighth or quarter of a turn on it to finally tighten it home, just to make sure that the hermetic seal is intact. But I'm actually quite pleased with how tight I got it just by using the duct tape. So that's a good tip for you. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now I have sized the bracelet and I'm absolutely delighted with the fit of this oyster style bracelet with the flip lock clasp on my 8-inch wrist. As you can see, 48mm lug to lug measurement, 20mm lug width tapering down to 16 at the flip lock, perfect proportions, 40mm head of the piece. It's just absolutely sublime. This is the most comfortable watch I have ever worn. I now have 122 videos on my channel and I've reviewed a lot of watches and I have worn a lot of watches in my watch collecting, and I can honestly say that this is the most comfortable watch I have worn for long periods of time. Wearing this 8 to 12 hours per day, it feels absolutely weightless on the wrist. The flat stainless steel case back and the low profile shape of it with those tapered lugs down to 20mm, it just is the most comfortable watch with excellent feel good factor, and I'm really hoping that Pagani Design make it. Now, I've suggested they make a black sunburst style like this, a blue sunburst style version and a green sunburst style version respectively. I think those three colour options would be very popular, so I'm hoping they make the watch with this PD-1661 Rolex Submariner date dial layout rather than going for the large Arabic numerals of the 9, 6 and 3 of the 214270 Explorer dial. It's just an absolutely beautiful piece to look at, and one thing I really like about it is the lip of the sapphire crystal which projects above the mirror polished bezel. It just adds interest to it. It's just an absolute pleasure to look at from every angle. So it's one of the favourite pieces in my collection. It's a watch that I wanted to build for a long time. And as I discussed when I reviewed the Blyger PA21 Explorer that this is based upon, I held off on buying that watch for a long time because they didn't offer it with the Seiko NH35A movement. But then when it came out with the Seiko version, I had to buy it, and I thought, well, hopefully I'll be able to fit the PD-1661 dial, handset and movement into the watch, and it's a straight swap, so it's worked very well. And I think with the signed Pagani Design flip lock and the fact it has an unsigned crown and also a sterile case back means that it works very well because it's now a Pagani Design rather than a Blyger. So really hoping that Pagani Design make it, and I'm really delighted with it. Now, just something else, I'll give you another tip. If you use the Unibond duct tape, the adhesive is very strong, but the problem with that is it's actually very difficult to clean off stainless steel. It sticks on it with a residue, so you'll find it difficult to rub off the residue left behind when you peel off the ball of duct tape. So what I suggest you do is alcohol hand gel. This is hand sanitizer, and the main component in it, or the main ingredient in it, is alcohol, which evaporates very quickly. So what you do is rub on the alcohol hand gel onto the case back, leave it for 20 to 30 minutes, and that will dissolve the adhesive residue of the duct tape, and then just use a cotton cloth to polish off the antibacterial hand gel, and it will also remove the residue and the alcohol at the same time and then evaporate off. So that makes it a lot easier. The other thing I use is, this is Bergen Swiss made Rodico putty, and Rodico putty is used by professional watchmakers to remove grease, lint, dust particles and fingerprints off watch cases, movements, and also the interiors of crystals when they're replacing parts and servicing watches. So it's made in Switzerland, and it feels like blue tack in terms of its consistency, but it's got a different adhesive property. It will pick up oil and grease, whereas blue tack won't. So this is very good. Now, it's expensive to buy. You can buy Rodico putty from Amazon, eBay, and also watchmaking suppliers, but it's worth buying because it's the perfect putty for removing greasy fingerprints, and also it's useful for fitting hands. I actually use this Rodico putty to pick up hands when I'm setting them on a cannon pinion if I'm modifying a watch and fitting the hands to the cannon pinion. Some watchmakers and watch modders use tweezers, but the risk of using tweezers is you can scuff the dial even if you use a dial protector, and you can also damage the hands because they're usually made from brass, which is laser cut and then electroplated to give them a silver stainless steel finish. But if you use tweezers, they often scuff the electroplating on the brass, so I think it's safer to use Rodico putty. You pick up the hand with the Rodico putty and then you can place it on the cannon pinion and then press it on. So multitude of uses, so I highly recommend Rodico putty made by Bergen. So now let's look at my PD-1661. Explorer Kermit. So as you know, this started off as a Hulk, and what I did was I used my butane blowtorch to heat up the sapphire crystal. I heated up the Cyclops magnifier, and that popped off the Cyclops magnifier off the sapphire crystal. Now when you do that, it will leave a residue of adhesive where the Cyclops magnifier was at 3 o'clock. So you'll need to remove that. Now, it's not going to suffice just to use alcohol. For example, you can't just use antibacterial hand gel, which has alcohol in it. It's not strong enough to dissolve the adhesive. What I use is acetone, which is the main component or ingredient in nail polish remover. So you can buy nail polish remover in supermarkets or pharmacies. And what you do is use a cotton earbud and you rub the acetone all over the sapphire crystal. And the AR coating, this doesn't have any AR coating anyway, but with a sapphire crystal that has AR coating, it's usually on the underside, so you don't have to worry about the acetone eating into the AR coating and stripping it off the sapphire crystal. However, you're not going to be able to do it with Hardlex because Hardlex is effectively chemical treated mineral crystal. So it's like mineral crystal which has an AR coating on it, the Hardlex coating. So be careful if you're doing it with Hardlex because acetone can dissolve the coating on Hardlex crystals. So, but on sapphire crystal with AR coating on the underside, there's no risk whatsoever. So I used a cotton earbud. I rubbed acetone all over the sapphire crystal, and that removed the adhesive residue of the Cyclops magnifier, which I had removed with a butane blowtorch. So no traces of this ever having a Cyclops magnifier. The flat sapphire crystal is perfectly blemish free. So what I did was I have fitted the NH35A movement dial and hands. As you can see, it's exactly the same as the one Pagani Design used, made in Japan. And I fitted the Blyger Explorer dial and handset inside this Hulk, and it's now created a Kermit because it's got a black dial rather than the green sunburst dial. Everything works. It does have a phantom date position because the date wheel is still under the dial. So when one pulls the crown to the first click, that is the date setting position, which obviously cannot be seen because there's no date window at 3 o'clock. So one pulls it out to the second click to set the time. The hand winding still works, as does the hacking, and it's silky smooth. The crown screws down on the crown tube with a very good interface, as I've discussed in the review. Now the other thing I did was I fitted the Blyger signed glide lock clasp. I've exchanged the Pagani design flip lock clasp for this Blyger one, so it makes sense. We've got Blyger on the glide lock clasp, which matches the dial Blyger as well. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now again, I have sized the bracelet. I've removed one full link from the bracelet because with the glide lock, as I discussed in the review of the Carly Wet glide lock, the glide lock is slightly longer by about half a link than the Pagani design flip lock. So in order to get the same fit, one needs to remove one link to shorten up the Oyster bracelet. And as you can see, it now fits to satisfaction with the glide lock on the mid of the extension. So very aesthetically pleasing piece due to the flat sapphire crystal, no Cyclops magnifier, and I really like the Explorer dial layouts with the large 9, 6 and 3 Arabic numerals on the dial. It's just an interesting piece because the matte black dial contrasts with the green ceramic Hulk or Kermit bezel, and it's just something different because we're all familiar with the Kermit with the Rolex Submariner dates dial layout, but this is the first time I've seen a Rolex Explorer dial used with a green Hulk or Kermit bezel, and I think the combination is good. So I like it. It's like a no date Submariner, but with the Explorer dial layout rather than the Submariner dates dial layout with the date complication at 3. So my plan is I'm going to sell this piece because I don't want it in my collection. I'm satisfied with what I've got. But of course I'm going to keep my PD-1661 Explorer, which is one of my favourite pieces. And I like this aspect of Pagani design watches. One can create a unique one-off piece, a one-off piece that no one else in the world has. So I like both of these watches because of that, because you're not going to see another collector with the identical watch. Nobody has produced a PD-1661 Explorer, and nobody has produced an Explorer Kermit like this. And also, it's good that they're both Seiko NH35A powered pieces, and I prefer good quality Seiko movements like that to the generic Chinese alternatives such as Mingzhu movements, I think that it's very reassuring to have a good quality Japanese made Seiko movement inside a watch, irrespective of its price point. So I hope you've liked my discussion of these two one-off pieces, and I'll keep you updated if Pagani Design are going to make the PD-1661 Explorer. I'm hoping they will, and hope you've enjoyed my review of these two pieces. So please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.